So sit down, close your eyes if you want, or just take a deep breath, but really, like you're allowing yourself to stop. Because the question I'm about to ask you is not a light one, and you may not even want to answer it right away, but it's been there for years, ready to emerge. Have you ever noticed how certain moments in your life seemed absurdly disconnected, until a specific event made everything fall into place? It's as if you were walking in the dark, stumbling over decisions, relationships, failures, until suddenly something happens. A loss, a breakup, a dream, a collapse, and then, without warning, you realize, so that's what it was. That's what it was all along. But why do you need collapse for meaning to reveal itself? Why does clarity always come after pain? Here's what few dare to admit. The human psyche is not designed for immediate happiness. It is designed for mystery. And it is this mystery that we are going to talk about today. You didn't click on this video by accident. Something in you is asking for meaning. But not rational meaning, organized in spreadsheets or motivational advice. It's asking for the kind of meaning that comes from deep within. The kind of meaning that, once revealed, changes everything. I am Freud, and today you will not receive advice. You will receive mirrors. You see what you call behavior, the recurring anxiety, the fear of abandonment, the sabotage before success, the attachment to those who destroy you. None of this is random. These are signs, symbols, traces of what your mind has tried to forget, but your body insists on remembering. You feel that something is wrong, but you don't know what. And you go on living, functioning, working, relating to others, as if everything were fine, but it's not. Because inside you, there is a hidden file, a sealed vault where you keep the experiences you couldn't bear when they happened. And that's why you had to repress them. Repressing means taking something out of your consciousness and pushing it into the basement of your mind, hoping it will die there. But it doesn't die. What is repressed always returns. But it returns in disguise. It returns as a symptom, as a pattern, as a strange dream, or as that emptiness you can't name. It's like a song playing in the back of your mind, but you can't quite make out the lyrics. You just feel the melody, melancholic, familiar, guiding your steps. How many times have you said to yourself, I won't do that again. Next time will be different. And yet you repeat it. And you blame yourself. And you get tired. But repetition is not stupidity. It is the unconscious trying to tell you something you haven't heard yet. Imagine a child who is ignored, humiliated, left alone at crucial moments. They grow up, but their unconscious remains in that childhood. So every time someone rejects you, criticizes you, or abandons you, it's not the adult in you who reacts. It's that child. The original wound throbs. The past infiltrates the present, and you act as if you are being threatened again. That's why it's so intense. That's why you lose control. You think you're reacting to the present, but you're reliving the past. This is the trap of the return of the repressed. And here's the crucial point. Nothing changes on the surface if you don't go down to the foundations of your history. There's no point in changing cities, jobs, or partners. The pattern goes with you, because it is you. Or rather, it is the part of you that has not yet been looked at, understood, worked through. The part that is not accepted. The shadow, as they call it, is not the evil in you. It is what you were forced to hide in order to be loved. Intense emotions, forbidden desires, legitimate anger, swallowed tears, all of this has become shadow. And it lurks, waiting for the right moment to come out. And when it does, you say, I don't know what came over me. I know. The unconscious escaped, and there's no point in trying to control it with willpower. Willpower is weak in the face of unconscious desire, because desire is not rational. Desire is a stubborn, obstinate child hungry for completeness. And that child in you is still waiting for someone to come back, for someone to apologize, for someone to say, I saw you, I loved you, I was with you when you needed me most. But that someone may never come. And that's why you keep repeating, unconsciously, the same script, hoping for a different ending. But what if I told you that the way out is not to erase the script, but to finally read it to the end? With courage, with truth, and with pain, yes. Because there is no healing without going through the pain that was avoided. There is no freedom without facing the prison you built for yourself with bricks of fear. And do you know why this is so difficult? Because the self, the ego, has been trained to keep everything in order, to function, to please, to be accepted. But this same ego, which protects, also represses. And it represses in the name of survival. As a child, you couldn't deal with what you felt, so you had to numb yourself. You had to cut off parts of yourself to fit into the love that was available. But now, as an adult, you are paying the price for that mutilation. That's why you feel like something is missing. That's why you have this constant feeling of inadequacy, of not belonging, of being out of place, even among people who love you. You are trying to live with half of yourself, and your unconscious knows it. It cries out for wholeness. It cries out for return. And what is this return? It is memory. It is listening to what has been silenced. It is the dream that insists on showing absurd scenes, but full of symbolic meaning. Because every dream is a letter sent by the unconscious. And every slip, every forgetfulness, every mistake is a crack through which the repressed tries to infiltrate the conscious mind. But you never learned to read this language. No one taught you to decipher the signs of your own soul. They taught you to function, to obey, to win, to adapt, but not to listen to what you truly feel. And that is why you live in this state of functional anesthesia. Everything seems fine, but inside something pulses, throbs, begs. Listen to me, please. See me. Today, perhaps, you have taken that first step. The step of stopping, of doing nothing. Because only by not doing, by suspending automatism, can you hear. Hear what your mind has been trying to say for years. Hear what the symptoms scream when words fail. Hear what your dreams whisper while you sleep. What comes next will not be comfortable, but it will be true. And the truth has a strange power. It reorganizes chaos. When something repressed comes to the surface with clarity, the symptoms dissolve, patterns fall apart, life resumes its flow. Not because you solved it, but because you understood it. And what is understood no longer needs to be repeated. Are here, that says it all. Because few people have the courage to continue, to dive deeper. Most run away, rationalize, divert. But not you. You chose to stay in this session. And I honor that. Because now we will begin to open the safe. Do you remember the feeling that everything fits after a breakdown? That fit is not magic. It's memory. Memory that returns when the ego breaks down for a moment. When the defense fails, the unconscious emerges and brings to light what was hidden. It is in these moments of crisis that the hidden script of your life begins to reveal itself. And then you realize that nothing was so random after all. Think about it. Why did you choose exactly the people you chose to love? Why do you always end up in the same type of relationship? Why do you feel a mixture of fear and fascination for those who reject you? I'll tell you, because you're trying to repeat an unresolved scene. You are unconsciously trying to reenact the trauma so that this time you can change the ending. The problem is that trauma is not an event. It is a freeze. Something happened in absence, violence, abandonment, and you were unable to process it, so you stopped there. A part of you got stuck at that age, at that moment, at that impact. And now, as an adult, You live in search of closing the cycle. But you don't know that you're choosing the same characters over and over again, hoping that this time they'll love you the right way. Except they won't, because they're not your parents, and because no one can fill the original hole. No one can give you what was lost at the exact moment when it was vital. That's why healing doesn't come from someone else. It comes from mourning the idealized childhood, from mourning the perfect love that never came. And that mourning ... hurts, because in it you admit, I was hurt. I was neglected. I was shaped by pain I didn't choose. And even more, I repeated that pain in myself and in others. This is the hardest part, accepting that you also hurt, you also abandoned, you also betrayed yourself. Because deep down, what you fear most is realizing that you have become what you swore you would never be, that you carry within you traits of those who hurt you, and that you act like them not out of malice, but out of repetition. But here is the liberating paradox. It is precisely by recognizing this that you free yourself, because what is unconscious controls you, but what becomes conscious transforms you. When you truly see the wounded child within you, something changes. You stop demanding that the world save them, and you finally begin to take care of them. This is where dreams come in, because dreams are the stage where the unconscious acts out its deepest truths. They are movies directed by your repressed desires, and in them, everything is symbolic. Fire is not just fire. The elevator that plummets is not just an elevator. The person chasing you is not just a threat. It is you trying to catch up with yourself. Want an example? Imagine someone who repeatedly dreams that they are naked in public. Feelings of shame, exposure, vulnerability. This dream is not about repressed sexual desire, as clichés suggest. It is revealing a deeper fear, the fear of being seen as you really are. That if the masks come off, no one will accept you. It's the superego at work, that critical moral authority that says, if they find out who you really are, they'll reject you. And why is this superego so cruel? Because it was formed in childhood, based on the demands of parents, school, religion. And these demands, once internalized, become voices inside you. Voices that judge, punish, demand perfection. The problem is that you confuse these voices with your truth. But they are not. They are just echoes. And echoes do not think. They repeat. That is why so many people live at war with themselves. The I desires, screams, wants pleasure. The superego represses, forbids, moralizes. And the ego, poor ego, tries to reconcile these forces while dealing with reality. It's a trench. And when the conflict becomes unbearable, the symptoms appear. Anxiety attacks, depression, panic attacks, creative block. These are all ways for the unconscious to say, something inside here is unsustainable. And what do? You take medicine. You run. You distract yourself. You try to silence the symptom. But silencing the symptom is like turning off the fire alarm while the house is still burning. The symptom is not the problem. It is the message. But you have been trained to reject symptoms, to see pain as weakness, to pretend that everything is fine. And so you live in a theater, playing the role you believe others expect of you. But this role is exhausting. This character gets sick, because there is nothing more exhausting than pretending to be someone else all the time. And here we are back, where we started. What happens when you stop? When you don't react, don't respond, don't meet other people's expectations? The world goes into crisis, because it was used to controlling you through your reactions. But when you shut up, when you do nothing, you break the cycle. And in that silence, everything starts to reorganize itself. Not because the world has changed, but because you stepped off the script. And stepping off the script is terrifying, because it means entering unknown territory. It means no longer living for what others expect of you, but for what you really feel, want, and need. And that is freedom. But it is also loneliness, because many will walk away when you stop being functional. But pay attention, those who walk away when you become true were never really with you. So, I repeat, do nothing. Don't react. Just observe. Observe how the world reorganizes itself when you step out of the role of savior, of pleaser, of victim. Observe who really approaches you. Observe what emerges from the silence. Because it is in silence that the unconscious speaks loudest. You are still here. That, to me, is revealing. It says that you are no longer running away from yourself. That you have accepted the most difficult invitation of all, to look inside yourself with no guarantee of comfort. Because the true encounter with the soul does not happen in inspiring speeches. It happens in the mirror. And the mirror of psychoanalysis is unforgiving. It shows everything, including what you have spent your whole life trying to hide. Let me tell you something. No one goes into therapy because they are happy. People seek someone to listen to them when the disguises no longer work, when the pain breaks through the armor, when the outside world can no longer contain the inner chaos. And it is at that exact moment that the possibility of healing is born. Not because therapy solves problems, but because it restores meaning to what seemed absurd. You begin to realize that you weren't sick. You were divided. That you weren't weak, you were repressed. That you weren't aimless, you were driven by forces you didn't know. And at that point, suffering ceases to be an enemy. It becomes a guide. Because every symptom is a coded letter. And every repetitive pattern is an attempt at a response. Want to see? Think about that relationship that destroyed you, but you couldn't get out of. It wasn't just attachment. It was repetition. Maybe that person treated you the way your parents treated you. Maybe they triggered the wound of not being enough, of not being seen. And by trying to make that person love you, you are actually trying to change the ending of an old story. Only with the wrong character. And that's why you fail. Because the unconscious doesn't seek love. It seeks recognition. It seeks to be seen its original pain. And until you look at that pain with your own eyes, you will continue to try to make it recognized by the other person. Without success. Endlessly. This is where the role of the analyst comes in, or, in this case, my voice in this session. I'm not here to give you ready-made answers. I'm here to teach you how to ask the right question. Because the unconscious doesn't answer why. It answers what for. Why are you repeating this? What is this anguish for? Why do you stay in this place of scarcity? The answer never comes from logic. It comes from memory. And the memory of the unconscious is not chronological. It is emotional. In other words, today, at 30, 40, 50 years old, you may be reacting to something you experienced at 5, a look of contempt, a prolonged absence, a remark that cut like a knife. You're difficult. You get in the way. You're nothing but trouble. And these phrases became internal truths. And these truths shaped your choices. You started avoiding conflict, pleasing others, giving in, not because you were generous, but because you were afraid of being rejected again. Because you learned that love and pain go hand in hand. That to be accepted, you had to annul yourself. And then the adult you became began to confuse love with effort, with struggle, with pain, because that was what you knew. And what is known to the unconscious is synonymous with security, even if it hurts. That's why you keep going back to places that hurt you. That's why your comfort zone is uncomfortable, because that's where the language your unconscious has learned to listen to is, it's familiar. And what is familiar becomes home even if it's a prison. The good news is that this can change, but not with promises, not with positive affirmations in the mirror. It changes with awareness. It changes when you can look at the wounded child inside you and say, I know what they did to you. I see your pain. And now I'm taking care of you. That is true self-help, helping yourself remember. Because only those who remember can integrate. And only those who integrate can transform. But there is something you need to know. The process of remembering is arduous. Because the unconscious does not reveal its secrets directly. It speaks through metaphors, through displacements, through dreams and symptoms. And it takes sensitivity to hear this language. That's why I want to tell you something about dreams. Many believe that dreaming is just a chaotic reorganization of memories from the day. But no, dreams are the disguised fulfillment of a repressed desire. They take an unacceptable desire and act it out behind symbols. It's like a censored play where the characters wear masks. For example, you dream that you are lost in a forest. But perhaps that forest is a representation of internal chaos. Perhaps the lost is not geographical, but emotional. Or you dream of a runaway train. And that train is your life, heading toward a destination you did not choose. Or you dream that someone dies and wake up in a panic. But perhaps that death represents only a part of you that needs to be left behind. Nothing is literal in dreams. Everything is psychic. And by interpreting your dreams, you begin to interpret yourself. You get to know yourself not on the surface, but at the root. And the root of your pain is almost always in childhood, because that's where it all begins. Not as a cliché, but as a structure. Children are pure desire, but they are also pure dependence. They need to be loved to survive. And so they are willing to give up parts of themselves to keep that love. They give up anger, spontaneity, sexuality, their voice. And all of this is pushed into the unconscious. But these parts do not die. They lie in wait, waiting for a chance to return. And they do return at the most inopportune moments, in uncontrolled jealousy, in disproportionate anger, in chronic procrastination, in self-destructive behaviors that you swear you do not understand. But now, perhaps, you are beginning to understand that it's not about fixing yourself. It's about reuniting yourself, about stopping living as a fragment and becoming whole. And wholeness is only possible when you stop fighting your shadows and start talking to them. When you understand that there are no parts of you that are unworthy of love, not even the ones you hide. And that, my friend, is what scares us the most. Because we were taught to seek light, goodness, perfection. But healing lives in the shadows. It lives in mistakes, in failure, in pain. It lives where you fell and didn't want to look anymore. And that's why, when you stop running and remain silent, everything falls into place, not because you found the solution, but because you accepted to listen to the question. You are going through the tunnel. It is no longer possible to pretend you didn't see it, because something in you, perhaps for the first time, is being touched in your depths. And when that happens, when the veil is torn, no lie about yourself can survive. This is the most dangerous moment in analysis, and also the most sacred, because now you know. And who knows, even if you want to, you can no longer go back to being blind. Then comes the big question: what to do with this new vision? What to do with the awareness that much of what you have lived, and still live, is a repetition of a script that you did not write, but followed as if it were your own? The first thing to do, is nothing. That's right. Don't rush to change, to act, to fix things. Just stay where you are. Because this is the moment when the ego, accustomed to control, loses its throne. And that's when the self can begin to emerge. You see, throughout your life, You have tried to save yourself through effort. You have tried to control the uncontrollable. You have tried to be better, overcome, cope. But true transformation begins when you recognize that certain pains cannot be resolved. They must be heard. That certain flaws cannot be filled. They must be honored. Think about that constant feeling of not belonging. The one that has been with you since childhood, even when surrounded by people. That feeling is not imagination. It is the trace of a soul that has never been able to fully inhabit the body. Because from an early age, you had to leave yourself behind in order to survive. You had to adapt, hide, mold yourself to the desires of others. And now, as an adult, you feel that something is always missing, that something essential has been left behind, and it has. It was you. It was your essence. And that is why life, no matter how much it progresses, always seems incomplete. But what if I told you that this emptiness you feel is not a flaw? That it is, in fact, the space left by everything you still need to integrate, not the whole of what is missing, but the womb of what is about to be born. Analysis is this birth, a painful birth of the real self, a process in which you lose layers, labels, masks, roles, and when all of that falls away, what is left? Silence. And at first, this silence seems scary. It seems like death, but it is life, because it is in silence that you begin to hear yourself. Many arrive here wanting to know themselves. But self-knowledge is not about discovering your psychological type, your zodiac sign, your behavioral profile. Real self-knowledge is brutal. It says what you call I is actually a construct, a defense, a fiction necessary to endure the pain of not being loved as you needed to be. And when you accept that, something inside you breaks. But curiously, it doesn't break to destroy you. It breaks to set you free. You stop demanding from the world what only you can give yourself. You stop blaming the past, your parents, others, not because they don't have responsibility, but because you understand that now there is a new choice possible, to continue living because of the wound, or to start living in the name of healing. And what is living in the name of healing? It is starting to say no, where before you said yes out of fear. It is choosing yourself, even if it means disappointing others. It is looking at your own history with compassion, not shame. It is embracing anger, sadness, desire without judging yourself. It is, finally, being whole. But be careful. The world is not ready for your wholeness. The world values the mask, not the face. The character, not the truth. And so, the more you become yourself, the more some will walk away. And that is not failure. It is a sign that you are changing frequencies, that you are ceasing to be functional, and becoming authentic. You are no longer here to please. You are here to exist, and to exist, for those who have always lived for others, is a revolutionary act. That is why the path of analysis is not popular. It does not promise quick happiness. It offers no shortcuts. It says, come, but come willing to lose everything you think you are, to find who you really were before you forgot. And that encounter, that encounter, transforms you forever. You begin to see others differently. You stop demanding perfection. You stop blaming. You stop projecting. Because you understand that what irritates you in others, is what you have not yet looked at in yourself. You understand that jealousy speaks more about your insecurity than about the attitude of others. That anger speaks of your powerlessness. That pride hides fear. That neediness is just the surface of an older loneliness. You become more lucid, kinder, more selective, more free. And paradoxically, the more you become yourself, the more you connect with the world. Because authenticity creates real bonds. And real bonds are rare. because they require presence, courage, vulnerability. But you've already started. You've already crossed the point of no return. And now, even if you stumble, and you will stumble, you will never be the same again. Because what has been seen can no longer be unseen, and at that point, silence becomes an ally. You don't have to explain your change. You don't have to convince anyone. Just keep going. With determination, with truth, with listening. Because, as I told you at the beginning, sometimes doing nothing is the most transformative step there is. You've come this far. And perhaps, contrary to what you imagined, you're no longer so desperate for answers. Something inside you seems to have loosened, as if you finally accepted that certain questions have no immediate answer. And that's okay, because sometimes what heals ... is not understanding. It's allowing the truth to come slowly, in the body's time, at the soul's pace. And the truth, when it arrives, does not shout. It whispers. It does not invade. It insinuates. It does not demand. It offers. And all you need to do is be present. This is the point where many retreat, because the present hurts. The now, stripped of distractions, is unbearable for those who have spent their lives anesthetized. Because when the noise stops, what emerges is what has always been there. The cry of the unheard child, the exhaustion of the functional adult, the longing for an inner home that was never inhabited. But now you have a path, no longer an imposed path, but your own. And that path begins with a simple gesture, letting go of your defenses. Let go of the justifications. Let go of the image you built to be accepted. And what's left? You are left. Naked. Real. Human. And that's when the magic happens. Because when you stop fighting to be loved and start loving yourself exactly as you are, you become free. Free to make mistakes. Free to desire. Free to say no. Free to be imperfect. And you know what's most surprising? The more you accept yourself, the more you heal those around you. Because your presence is no longer a performance. It becomes an invitation. A mirror. People begin to lower their own masks in front of you. They begin to allow themselves to feel. They begin to confess truths they never had the courage to say. Because your silence becomes a womb. A safe space where others can be born to ... And all of this started when you stopped. When you did nothing. See the paradox. You spent your life trying to be someone. And only when you stopped trying did you become who you are. It's like that with everyone. Because being is not a construction. It is memory. Memory of who you were. Before the pain. Before the trauma. Before the adaptation. And when you access that place, you come home. Not an external home, but the one that has always been inside you, waiting to be inhabited. Now, perhaps you understand the title of this video, Do Nothing, and see how everything falls into place. Because doing nothing in this context is a radical act of presence, a silent cry that says, no more running away. I am here with everything I am. With everything that hurts, with everything that pulses. And when that cry echoes inside you, the unconscious, which has been waiting for this moment for decades, responds. And then, yes, everything starts to fall into place. You understand why you chose that profession, why you repeated that relationship, why you sabotage yourself whenever you are about to achieve something, why you feel that emptiness that success can fill. Everything makes sense, not because the pain disappears, but because you stop fighting it, and you start listening to it, respecting it, reconciling yourself with your own history. That's what it means to be an adult in psychoanalysis, to stop living as a victim of the past, and become the author of the present. And that takes courage, because being the author of your own life means recognizing that you can no longer blame others. That the love you sought outside yourself now depends on how much you are willing to love yourself. With all your flaws, it means looking at your desires without shame, at your anger without guilt, at your sexuality without moralizing, at your sadness without rushing, and say, yes, this is also me. Right now, you may be feeling something strange, as if you are tired, but at peace, as if a part of you are saying, finally. It is your soul recognizing that something has moved, that something has been seen. That something, even if subtle, is no longer as it was before. This is the beginning of the end of repetition. Not because everything will be different tomorrow, but because you will be different with the same tomorrow, and that changes everything. Because life will continue to test you. It will continue to provoke you. It will continue to bring people, situations, losses. But now, you have another place inside for which to respond. No longer from the wound, but from wholeness. And that, my friend, is what we call freedom. So if I could leave you with one last image, it would be this. Imagine your psyche as a river. For years, it ran between rocks, diverting, twisting, avoiding collisions. But now, you have removed a rock. Just one. And that has changed the course of the water. Perhaps imperceptibly. But it has changed. And like every river, yours also knows where to go. It knows how to return to its source. It knows how to find the sea again. You just need to allow it. And stay. Until one day, effortlessly, you look back and say, now yes, everything fits. Because healing never comes like a bolt of lightning. It comes like a memory, and now you remembered. If this session touched you in any way, share it in the comments. Maybe your truth is the key someone else needs to find themselves too. And if you want to continue this journey of self-discovery, subscribe to the channel. Here, the analysis continues. Remember, you are not broken. You are revealing yourself, until the next session.